Hello and welcome to Chat DPS. This is the last time that we'll be joining you this year. That we'll be putting out some shorts over the time, over the Christmas period and the New Year period. Today, I'm catching up with Adam and Robert, and we're talking about some of the things that we've really enjoyed seeing over the course of the last 12 months, and some of the things that we've been sad to see. Some of the highlights, some of the lowlights, and how we're going to finish the year. Are we finishing the year stronger than we started it? Are we seeing some sort of beautiful green shoots of recovery and wonderful new meadows to go and play in, or are we really all doom and gloom? I guess I'll kick this one off. I earlier in this year we were joined by my very old friend, very old and good friend, Jonathan Hemus. And Jonathan, Robert and I did catch up over a number of incidents at the time that were reasonably hot. The one that actually caught my attention was the one around Norsk Hydro. And Jonathan is probably the foremost authority around crisis management plans, working out of the UK, and works globally with some really, impressive brands. But even he was so impressed with the Norsk Hydro situation. Norsk Hydro was a situation where the company discovered that it had been hacked in the middle of the night. Before 6 o'clock in the morning, they'd had their first press conference. They'd got a playbook, and they played that book for everything it was worth, and to such effect that at the end of the day, their share price actually increased at the time, which is pretty much unheard of. And I think it was just an advertisement for, if you're going to do something, do it really, really well. Understand what your plan is and what have you, and go for gold. Yeah, be very clear about what it is. Adam, I know that you've walked through many crises in the past. I mean, that was a hell of a story, right?
And look, it's really interesting. So you can tell people that have actually put a bit of work into what their plan is and what their plan of attack is in case something has happened, and they've had their communications, they've spoken to people, and they've turned cybersecurity into no longer being a swear word within the business. Everyone is comfortable with their tasks and what they're going to do. So yeah, I think it's always nice to see the goods out there, because being a CISO, you tend to see the bad a lot, and you forget that there's good out there. So it's lovely to see stories like that. I just wish there was more and more of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Robert, I know you're participating in that particular story, and there were a couple of others that were brought up during that time. I mean, there was some really good life lessons around that for every executive. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like having a plan, making sure you're playing that plan. You know,
Yeah,
do you remember that? Do you remember that conversation?
absolutely. Yeah. So North Hydro, like, as Adam sort of touched on it, and unfortunately it tends to be the exception rather than the rule. And in that case, it just demonstrated how the amount of preparation that went into that, and everyone knew their roles. It was like a military operation. So even though the incident was first reported in the middle of the night, people were right onto it, and knew their roles and knew what to do, and followed the playbook to the letter. Um, Unfortunately, when you uh, look at some Australian events like Qantas and Optus, and obviously there's a few in the UK that made some headlines, like Jaguar Land Rover and Marks and
Yeah,
Spencers. But I mean, I think we've sort of talked about it. I think we were talking about Qantas at the time. Qantas started off quite
yeah,
strong in
it
responding
did.
to the data breach, and then it really fell away. And I think all of us were probably Qantas customers, and the lack of information in terms of updates was really poor in terms
It's
of
huge, yeah.
what was the effect of the data breach, what data breach, what types of data had actually been breached. Trying to get that information was a real problem from a Qantas point of view, and then just sort of briefly with Optus. I mean, it's almost like they've got a new CEO. It's almost like they learned nothing from the major data breach from a couple of
Yeah,
years ago. And I know this one was not so much a cyber attack, but a software issue. But still, you've got a new executive team in place, but still the communications were below, let's say, below community expectations.
Yeah.
There's been a huge amount of finger pointing in Parliament since then. And it seems as though Optus are trying to throw, is it Vodafone under the bus? I think it was,
Yeah.
or
There's a
one of their
range.
vendors.
There's a
So,
range
so
of things that they.
playing the victim again and throwing somebody else under the bus. It's like a repeat of
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think the thing for me there is the fact that, having a plan that's actually, sort of in line with your values. Yeah, I mean, because quite clearly, Qantas had a plan. Yeah, they had a communications plan. What they
Mm.
didn't have was a clear and undiluted view of who they were at the time. Yeah, and why they were in business, and their values did not fly through because what it turned out to be were empty words. Yeah.
Mm.
So they did not live their values. They did not understand that they actually were in the middle of a full blown crisis, and they just ignored their values and just sort of like thought, oh, it's okay, we're going to get away with some really cute, sort of communication. And then that's where it all started peeling back, in my view, because they just didn't. It just seemed to me that they didn't know or didn't care, sort of how they were advancing. So the values side of it was really important part, and that's where I think the Norsk Hydro thing was. They knew what their values were. They lived their values high, to a very high degree, and without exception, and came out of it looking like absolute heroes, because
Mm.
they were open, transparent, clear. They'd got a plan. They weren't going to pay a ransom. It was just like playbook 101 stuff, But those values were so important to them.
Yeah, yeah, and that comes from the leadership. So I
Yeah.
think where you see these organisations straying away from, again, what does the community expect? As what was it? A million plus Qantas customers want to know what information has been breached. So we want clear communication. We want regular updates. And when you don't get that, that's a failure of leadership. It's a failure of governance. It's a failure of oversight. It's a failure of leadership. And that's what we've seen, unfortunately, in a lot of these incidents.
Yeah, one of the biggest failures there, and I don't know, Adam, whether you can comment on this, was the fact that, in 1 month, we've got, Qantas running around saying, "Oh my gosh, there's been a problem, and all this information's been released." The following month, I started getting emails about, "Hey, you want to do all your payments with Qantas because we're great at this stuff," like, and you're thinking, really? You've just released all of my information out onto the web with, sort of all this stuff about, how many Qantas points I've got, what my passwords are, all the other bits and pieces. And now you're saying it's okay for me to utilize your payments platform. I don't think so.
This is an interesting side of things where the chief security officer at Optus reports through to the CIO and lives in technology land, right? And that is 50% of the job, absolutely. But the other 50% of the job is people, process, governance. And a lot of companies, because of where they think or put the chief security officer, then cuts that out of all of the conversations. And without that governance, that accountability, sitting in your executive team, you get these misses constantly, and no one's there to say, "Hey, what if?"
Yeah.
We should look at this, and because you're not a peer, then you're not acknowledged as such. So it goes to there's been a number of different things, like should a chief security officer report to a CFO or the CEO or whatever from that end. There's no clear cut answer, but I know from my perspective, anytime that I have been in an organization, I have always tried to sit, whether I reported to a CFO or a CIO, I sat in on every meeting with the other chiefs as an equal and was treated that way. And that worked really well across the board. So, like, who you report to isn't a crutch if you get up there and actually get in and have the conversation. And I think, using Optus as an example, that was a clear show of that wasn't something that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Now then, I guess moving on, I mean, some of the more, one of the more humorous stories that we had this year really caught your eye, Adam. Um, what was that story that really caught your imagination?
So my favorite thing that's happened all year was the robbery in the Louvre. And I got to tell you, that was the gift that kept on giving. Us such a great story. One, because coming from a background in penetration testing and physical penetration testing, the old break and enter,
Yeah,
I always see it as something that's really, really important and people often overlook. And so to see it so blatant, 1 week you find out, oh, they came in, they looked like the window repair guys. They just came in and started working, and then in they went and they got out straight away. Then to find like a following week, there was a bit of cyber added in there because they got onto the Wi-Fi to be able to do some fun stuff with the cameras. And the password for the Louvre was the Louvre. just 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 all of these fun things. So for like a couple of weeks, we just got like these new levels of interesting pieces of information into how this whole thing kind of fell apart for the Louvre. Now, terrible, really, really valuable and iconic and cultural things got stolen. Absolutely. But my goodness, when you look at the chain of events that led to that,
it
it's
was
almost obscene.
it was almost Inspector Clouseau on the case, wasn't it? I mean, it was definitely
So
the
much.
Pink Panther. It was sort of Kato.
Very much so. An episode of Mr. Bean. Like
Yeah,
it was one of those things where you were kind of like, wait, is this real?
yeah. It's comical. Robert, did I know that this one caught your eye as well because
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it was pretty much everybody's favorite story for the year, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you say, it could have been a plot out of the new Pink Panther movie if they want to put one together. So but we have to be serious because it's a crime, so we have to be
Yeah,
serious. But um,
Ella
but
Bellamy.
yeah, it definitely was a gift that kept giving. And but look from yeah, to try and take a serious kind of tone on this. Like for those and Adam's touched on it. Like if you run to ISO 27001 within your information security management system, you have to think about physical security, not just digital or cyber security. So it's a good reminder that there's physical elements you've got to look after. And so whether it's your premises, whether it's a data center if you have on-prem, you do actually need to make sure that your physical security is up to scratch. And in the case of the
Yeah,
Louvre, those guys were in and out in 8 minutes. Pretty embarrassing. And I suppose the other kind of little bit of humorous sort of side is that when we talk about exfiltration of personal information, we kind of talk about the digital crown jewels. In this case, they
mm,
actually took real crown
The
jewels.
real crown
they
jewels.
took they,
Yeah.
they took the French crown jewels. So you can't make this stuff up. Anyway, look, they seem to have all been caught because they were sort of Inspector Clouseau level of criminals as well. So hopefully
well,
everything will
yeah,
get returned, and hopefully they'll learn a lesson. But yeah, I think the takeaway is think about your physical security. Think about people who might be tailgating behind you into buildings. Think about people who look like they're dressed as maintenance workers. And do they actually have the credentials? Is the photocopier repair person actually there to repair the photocopier or to actually
yeah.
gain access to your system through peripherals?
Yeah.
So a little bit of a reminder there about to look after the physical side of things as well.
Yeah, and
Very true.
that physical security piece. I mean, having come out of data centers, I mean, is very, very real, right? I mean, so you got the physical and then the data side of things. So, I mean, it's understanding how those two collide and act graciously together. I think is the piece. Now, then, another story that again is actually quite recent, that sort of captured your imagination, Robert, from a legal perspective, involves one of the latest privacy principles. You were looking at ACL, right?
Yeah, Australian Clinical Lab. So this was a landmark decision because it was the first time that an Australian entity has been fined under the Privacy Act. So we've been talking amongst ourselves on the pod, outside of the pod, about how the regulators were starting to close ranks, really go after different organisations. Obviously, we're still waiting on outcomes from Optus and Medibank and Latitude and everyone else. But we've seen things like RI Advice. We've seen other small organisations being targeted, particularly in the financial services space. And we talked about Vinomofo, I think, just the other week.
Yeah.
And Australian Clinical Labs got penalised, the best part of $6 million for failing to address cybersecurity deficiencies. Now, they were a little bit unfortunate because they acquired another business that had those deficiencies. ACL didn't do due diligence that perhaps they should have done, and so there's a lesson to be learned there. But I think the key thing is that the regulators are really looking to flex their muscles. This is a major warning shot to all other organisations covered by the Privacy Act, and I think the key message for organisations going into 2026 is the court spent quite a bit of time going through what reasonable steps an organisation should be taking when it's covered under the Privacy Act in relation to APP 11, which is all about protecting the security of personal information. And it's for organisations to really think about, okay, am I taking reasonable steps? Given the particular circumstances of my organisation. So ACL, clinical organisation, fairly large turnover, I think it was like $700-800 million a year. So a fairly large organisation, keeper of sensitive data, might be different to, we talked about Vinomofo, but each organisation has got to actually take this thing seriously. And you have to have a framework. Whether it's NIST or something else, you have to have controls in place, whether it's potential aid or CIS or something else. You actually need to be working on these things. You need to be investing in people, process, and technology, because if you get called out in the next few years, you will get smashed by the regulators. And the Information Commissioner might be one, but depending on what sector you might be in, you might also get whacked by ATMA or APRA or ASIC. So they're coming after you. They keep broadcasting it. They keep demonstrating it through the courts. It's like, how many warning shots do organisations need? So I think my takeaway from the ACL case is you've got to get ready in 2026. If you've been falling behind and you haven't been investing in uplifting your cybersecurity posture, now is the time to start making those decisions and make sure that 2026 is all about uplifting your resilience.
Yeah, and it's sort of, I guess, there are so many stories here about, sort of like what's right, what's wrong, and what have you. But just before we took on to the air, we were talking about, sort of like the CrowdStrike situation again. And the one thing there is the fact that we made all this noise about the fact that Norsk Hydro's share price rose at the time of being under pressure of having that outcome. Adam, you were saying that in 2024, their share price dipped down to 231 just post the incident, and today that share price is 537.
$5 something. Yeah.
I'm just wondering about the long-term effects to some of these larger end-of-town organizations, and whether the consequences are really there, and is it worth their while just sort of like not heeding anything. CrowdStrike's a particular situation. I mean, there was confusion over what it was to begin with, and what have you. But I mean, and it wasn't a breach. It was just a technical.
It was a programming mishap. Yes.
So fat fingers. I got those.
Yes. It's interesting. So if you look on averages through any of these attacks that have happened across the end, so anything that's had a breach, you notice they usually bottom out as the worst of it within 41 days after disclosure. And on average is about 1.4, 1.5% decline in their stock prices, give or take, over all of the last ones in the last 12 months, or yeah, over the last 12 months. But what you find is that they usually recover within 53 business days after that. And
It's
and it's
insane.
crazy that they bounce back up within, a couple of months, within 2
Yeah.
months.
But Robert, you had a counterpoint to this, didn't you? Because I mean, obviously, legal takes a little bit longer, right? We're a bit slower in the
Yeah,
legal world.
I would say markets are irrational, so you can't pay too much attention to them. But I mean, there's always a long tail to these data breaches. It takes, as we've seen with some recent examples in Australia, it takes at least 2 years for the regulators to bring a case against. I mean, we've seen it with Optus and Medibank, and even then they're still playing out. So there's a long tail here. Um, and it's not just the regulators, but if you're listed on the stock exchange, there's shareholder class actions as well. And now we may see individual class actions. These take years to play out. So you are dealing with reputational damage and cost that goes on for years and years, and may end up with penalties from regulators, settlements with class action shareholders or individuals, and the cost is huge. Depending on the size of the organisation. If we're looking at an Optus or Medibank, we're going to be they're going to be looking at hundreds of millions of dollars. And so the share market may shrug that off and kind of go, oh well, they've got hit once, maybe they're not going to get hit again. But from a business perspective, it's a huge cost, and it's a huge cost that could have been avoided if you had the proper people, process, technology in place, the proper governance in place the first time, the proper incident management plan. So these costs can be avoided if you actually prepare and you invest up front. And so yeah, so there's I'd say there's detachment between the share price and the actual cost of the business and how long it actually takes to recover, to get back to
Yeah.
a sort of a proper resilient posture.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really wants to be going into court and having their brand dragged through the mire and the mud and what have you, and then having millions of dollars to pay out. I
Yeah,
mean, prevention quite clearly is better than cure. So
absolutely.
getting a better grip on what's going on in your business and understanding what the risks are and how to prevent those risks from becoming a reality and the worst day of your life seems to be the good
Yeah,
lesson that we've
that's
learned
right.
from
That's
this
right.
year.
Yeah, because touching on that, I think we saw a few stories coming out about the individual effect. Like you say, there was a few
Oh,
discussions
yeah.
around people
Yeah,
just
the human
basically
effect.
saying this is like the worst week. This is the worst week of their life. People
Mm.
massively stressed, essentially having anxiety disorders because of what they've gone through. So there is the personal cost as well for the individuals involved in these recovery operations.
Yeah, and that we saw that just particularly with Marks and Spencers, and there was one this morning as well where the CISO came out and said this was what he went through he wouldn't wish on
Mm.
anybody,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
and
Yep.
that's a very real kind of human side to the
mm,
story. So I guess finishing the year now, Robert, Adam, thank you so much for joining in. This has just been a wonderful year for me. A highlight of my week is always the way to start it with you both and others as we've come through the year. I think we've had variety this year. It's been a wonderful year. It's been a wonderful year to celebrate things. It's been a wonderful year to learn. And hopefully, one of the things that we have been able to do is to bring our learnings to other people so that they don't actually have to go through the same kind of pain that others have been going through. We wish you all very, very Merry Christmas, a very happy Hanukkah. We wish you whatever it is where you come from. We wish you nothing but the very best, and hope that when we come back in 2026, that we're going to have an even better time learning and continuing to drive perfection and great outcomes for all in the digital security and data prevention world. Adam?
Yeah, no, thank you everyone, and to both of you as well. This has been an absolute blast and my pleasure to come on and talk about just the usual things that I love to talk about. So thank you for the opportunity. It's been an awfully great time, and yeah, Merry Christmas or Happy Winter Solstice to everyone out there. I hope you have a wonderful New Year's, and hopefully remember all of it. Fingers crossed.
Thank you. And Robert, the last word goes to you, my friend, in
Okay.
2025.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Alan. Yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting with you guys on all things cybersecurity. Yeah, lots that we've learned, lots that we've gone through, and let's take that forward into 2026. We'll come back refreshed and raring to go and raring to share some more learnings in 2026. So until then, yeah, happy holidays to everyone that celebrates.
Thank you. That's Chat DPS for 2025. Cheerio.